There are people in this world who are born into remarkable circumstances and choose, quietly and deliberately, to walk away from the spotlight. Katherine Hartley Short was one of those people. The eldest daughter of beloved comedian and actor Martin Short, Katherine had every opportunity to lean into the fame that surrounded her family. Instead, she spent her life doing something far harder and far more meaningful, sitting with people in their darkest moments and helping them find a way forward. On February 24, 2026, the Short family confirmed that Katherine had passed away at her Hollywood Hills home in Los Angeles. She was 42 years old. The family released a statement asking for privacy, saying Katherine was beloved by all and will be remembered for the light and joy she brought into the world. Today we want to take the time to honor that light by telling her story properly. To understand Katherine Short, you have to understand where she came from. Martin Short, her father, is one of the most celebrated comedic talents of his generation. Born in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada in 1950, Martin's career spans decades from his breakout work on SCTV and Saturday Night Live in the early 1980s to blockbuster films like Three Amigos, Father of the Bride, and Mars Attacks, to his recent Emmy-nominated role as Oliver Putnam in the hit Hulu series Only Murders in the Building. He has a Tony Award, 2 Emmy Awards, 2 SAG Awards, and an Order of Canada to his name. He is, by every measure, a legend. But behind all of that, behind the red carpets and the standing ovations, was a deeply devoted family man. And at the center of that family was the woman who made it all possible, Nancy Dolman, the woman Martin Short would call the love of his life. Martin and Nancy first met in 1972 during a Toronto production of the musical Godspell. Nancy was talented, warm, and by Martin's own account, extraordinarily beautiful. He was at the time in a relationship with fellow cast member Gilda Radner. But when he first laid eyes on Nancy, something shifted. Years later, after he and Gilda parted ways, Martin worked up the nerve to ask Nancy out on a tennis date, and that was the beginning of everything. They married in 1980, and Martin has described their marriage simply as a triumph. Nancy had her own career as a comedic actress and singer. She had a recurring role on the popular ABC sitcom Soap, had traveled North America in productions of Jesus Christ Superstar, and had even appeared in her husband's 1985 cable special. But in 1985, she made the choice to step away from the entertainment world entirely to raise her family full-time. It was a decision made with love, and it defined who their children would become. Katherine Elizabeth Short was born on December 3 and was adopted by Martin and Nancy as an infant, the first of 3 children the couple would welcome into their home. Oliver Patrick followed in 1986 and Henry Hayter in 1989. The Short household, by all accounts, was filled with laughter, warmth, and deep roots. The family made their primary home in Pacific Palisades, California, and kept a vacation home on Lake Roseau in Ontario, Canada, a place that held particular meaning for the family. Martin has joked in interviews that none of his children wanted to go into show business, even though he pushed them. During a 2012 appearance on Conan, he quipped that he made them do laps in the morning while he watched from the balcony with his coffee, calling after them. He got a big laugh because it was so clearly the opposite of the truth. The truth was that Martin and Nancy raised 3 children who each found their own paths. Oliver would go on to work in the sports broadcasting world after studying at Notre Dame. Henry became a veterinary assistant, and Katherine chose social work. Each of them, in their own way, chose a life of substance over spectacle. Katherine's path into social work was deeply intentional. After growing up in a household that valued connection, empathy, and care for others, she pursued her undergraduate degree at New York University, graduating in 2006 with a bachelor's degree in psychology and gender sexuality studies. It was a field of study that spoke directly to her interests, understanding people, understanding identity, and understanding the invisible struggles that so many carry quietly through life. She then returned to California to continue her education, earning her master's degree in social work from the University of Southern California in 2010, the same year her mother passed away. That timing is worth pausing on. The year she completed her graduate training was also the year she experienced one of the most profound losses a person can face. And yet she pressed forward, carrying both her grief and her education with her into the work that followed. What followed her graduation was a career that in its depth and dedication says everything about who Katherine Short was as a person. She didn't open a private practice immediately and call it a day. She rolled up her sleeves and went where she was needed most. She completed an internship at Public Counsel, a pro bono law firm in Los Angeles that provides free legal services to those who cannot afford them. She trained at the West Los Angeles Veterans Administration, working with veterans navigating some of the most complex and painful experiences a person can have. She then spent 4 years at UCLA's Resnick Neuropsychiatric Hospital, where she developed expertise in crisis management, individual therapy, group psychotherapy, advocacy, and supporting the families of people living with severe mental illness or substance use disorders. From there, she joined the Camden Center, a dual diagnosis outpatient program in West Los Angeles, specializing in psychiatric, addictive, and eating disorders. And eventually she established her own private practice where she specialized in adoption, anxiety, depression, personality disorders, grief and loss, and relationship difficulties. She also worked part-time at My Health, a psychiatry-led outpatient clinic in Los Angeles. At every stage of her career, she was drawn to the people who needed the most support. That was not a coincidence, that was a calling. Beyond her clinical work, Katherine was also a committed advocate for breaking down the stigma surrounding mental health. She was involved with Bring Change to Mind, a non-profit organization co-founded by actress Glenn Close that works to end the shame and misunderstanding that too often surrounds mental illness. The organization's mission to encourage open conversation and compassion aligned perfectly with the values that guided Katherine's career. It's a quietly remarkable thing when you think about it. Here was a woman who could have traded on her family name, who could have taken a far easier road. Instead, she spent her professional life sitting across from people in crisis, people struggling with grief and addiction and loss and fear, and she helped them, day after day, year after year. That is a profound kind of courage. Martin Short is no stranger to grief. His older brother David died in a car accident when Martin was just 12 years old. His mother passed away from cancer when he was 17. 2 years later, his father died from complications of a stroke. By the time he was 19, he had lost most of his immediate family. And yet somehow, he built a life full of love and laughter. When Nancy was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, Martin faced that same devastating reality all over again. She passed away on August 24th, 2010, at their home in Pacific Palisades. She was 58 years old. Martin has spoken openly in interviews about how he and his children navigated that loss together. He told The Guardian in 2012 that it had been a tough 2 years for his kids, and reflected that grief has a way of arriving whether we're ready for it or not. Nancy's passing was handled with the same warmth and humor she brought to everything. She had told Martin she didn't want a funeral or a memorial, she wanted a party, so that's what they did. Friends and family gathered, and then Martin and the children went out on a boat and scattered her ashes into the water. And then in a moment that says everything about who that family was, they all jumped in after her. Martin has said he still talks to Nancy. It's "Hey Nan, you know," he told AARP. How would she react to this decision or that, especially regarding our 3 kids? He has described their love as something that didn't end with her death. It simply changed shape. Catherine's passing comes at an already painful time for Martin. Just weeks earlier, he had paid tribute to his dear friend and longtime collaborator, Catherine O'Hara, who had passed away from a pulmonary embolism while also privately battling illness. Martin and Catherine had known each other since she was 18 years old. He called her the greatest, most brilliant, kindest, sweetest angel. Losing her was a significant blow, and now, weeks later, his family has been asked to carry an even heavier weight. Martin Short and Steve Martin had comedy tour dates scheduled for Friday in Milwaukee and Saturday in Minneapolis. Those shows were called into question following the news of Catherine's death. Whatever happens with those commitments, one thing is certain: nothing about the next days and weeks will be easy for this family. What we know about Katherine Short is this: she was a woman who chose depth over comfort, service over celebrity, and presence over recognition. She spent her career in rooms where people were hurting, and she showed up anyway. She held space for people navigating grief and fear and illness, and she did it with training, with skill, and by all accounts, with genuine compassion. She appeared at events with her father over the years, at the Vanity Fair Oscar party in 2011, at Broadway openings, at birthday celebrations, always warm, always present, always clearly loved. Martin celebrated her 40th birthday with her in October 2023. She was surrounded by people who cherished her. The field she worked in, mental health, carries its own particular weight. Clinicians who support others through their hardest experiences are not immune to struggle themselves. Katherine understood, better than most, that mental health is complicated, that it doesn't follow neat lines, and that asking for help is an act of bravery, not weakness. That was the message at the heart of her advocacy work with Bring Change to Mind. The Short family has asked for privacy as they grieve, and that request deserves to be honored fully. What we can do from the outside is remember Katherine the way her family described her, as someone who brought light and joy into the world, as someone who dedicated her career to easing the suffering of others, as a daughter, a sister, and a person who mattered enormously to the people who knew her. She was 42 years old. If there is anything Katherine Short's life asks of us, it is to take mental health seriously, not as a topic to tiptoe around, but as something real, something human, as something we're talking about openly. The work she did and the organization she supported exist precisely because stigma costs lives. Because silence can be more dangerous than speaking up. If you or someone you love is struggling right now, please reach out. You can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, available 24 hours a day. You don't have to be in crisis to call, you just have to be struggling, and that's enough. Rest in peace, Katherine. The work you did mattered. The lives you touched were changed by your presence, and the light you brought into the world. That doesn't go out.